Welcome to the Transform Sales Podcast, where forward-thinking business leaders come to share their experiences and ideas, learn from each other, and amplify their results together.
All right, everybody, we are live now with Chetan from Jinactus Consulting. Chetan, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, Eddie. How are you?
I'm doing great as well. Busy week, busy days, and it's always great to stay busy. I wanted to start with the first question. I always like to give the audience a little bit of background into who we're speaking with. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you broke into the outsourced sales industry?
Sure. So, my name is Chetan Kohli. I started the company called Jinactus Consulting roughly 10 years back. And all through my life, and I've got now 30 years of work experience, all in sales, and largely all in B2B sales as well. So, we were doing all of this bit earlier for different organizations before we thought that it's better to do something on our own and we can benefit lot more people that way. So that's a little background about us, what we do. Uh, but essentially, in my 30 years experience, last 22, 23 years have been in software, and that too in various kinds of software. So right from a software product sales to services sales to implementation sales, so all different kind of sales, but largely my thought has always been on to solution sales,
Mhm.
and we champion in that one. So we picked up when we started Genactus, we said we'll focus only on B2B software sales because that's where we champion it, and we have spent so much amount of time in that space.
Awesome. So that almost answers my second question, Chetan, which was going to be who are the best fit customers for Genactus Consulting? So to recap a little bit, you have been, Genactus has been around for 10 years, but you have more than 20 years, 30 years almost of experience in B2B sales when you decided to, after working for other companies, doing sales for them, decided to create your own company. You said, hey, let's focus on B2B sales, specifically software companies. Now that's a very big umbrella, right? There's many software services, software products, SaaS solutions from small, medium companies to enterprise companies. So double clicking on this question, who would be your best fit customers within the software realm, within the software development?
So obviously, companies which are into B2B space, from a software perspective, that's obviously one part that's given. The second part is that they need to be a little, it could be any kind of size, but their software needs to be focused. For example, if they're focused on manufacturing, we are a very good fit for them because we understand manufacturing a lot better than other verticals. Not to say that we don't focus on those ones, we do focus because for each and every product that we pick up, every product has a different set of offering to their
Mhm.
customers, and their customers could come from manufacturing, they could come from BFSI, they could come from retail or any telecom, any place, and we've worked with all of these kind of things, but we've seen much better results come from manufacturing. And second one will be the BFSI segment that we work with. So these two segments, if you focus on that one, I think we could be a good agency to work with.
Can you repeat the second one for me, please? The first one was manufacturing and the second one?
Is BFSI. So it is banking, financial services, and insurance.
Perfect. Banking, financial services, and insurance. In manufacturing are two great industries or companies that you have done outbound for in the past and have been very successful, which ties in with my next question. I wanted to share a little bit of a success story. Why don't we highlight one of your service offerings and how has that worked for maybe a company in manufacturing or BFSI? How about that?
Sure. So one of the place where we worked was that there was a company which came to us and we were able, and this was our offering was complete sales outsourcing. That means right from we participated with them to create the sales strategy to go forward to achieve the kind of numbers that they were talking about, and then once you've decided the strategy, implemented the whole strategy for whole sales cycle as well. And that's one of the key things that we do. So we do whole sales cycle. We just don't do lead gen and or appointment settings and all that. We do the complete sales. That means we would don the hat of the customer. So that means I would have your email IDs, I would have your visiting cards, everything. We will go and meet customers as well, or prospects, I should still say, from their space, and we will work with them directly. Um, and so for one of the companies, they gave us a charter that their sales had not been growing for some time, and for 2 years they were pretty much stagnant sales. And when we came in, we said, there's going to be a little bit of change in positioning that they have. So first and foremost, I think it was good to work with that company because they were excellent listeners, and the founders of that company were really, really looking at changes, and they allowed us a free hand to make all those changes that way. And we worked very closely with them. So we did the strategy, came out with a new positioning, and I think with that new positioning, we were able to really take them to the market. We were able to double their revenue in that year that we worked with them, and the next year we again had projected to increase it by another double it up. But fortunately, unfortunately, that company got bought over by somebody else. So we had to lose. But I think we did play a role that way, even when they got bought over, because that size was started
They
becoming
grew up.
appealing to that customer. Yeah, they grew up.
It enhanced their valuation, and probably the owner made a better exit after hiring you than if they
Yeah.
had sold the company before hiring you. So there's a few things to unpack here on that story that you share. So they were stagnant in their sales. You adjusted positioning, which I would assume is the messaging. But how will we peel it back? You said, for this company, I was doing full sales cycles. So there was not just appointment setting, you were closing deals. This was a closing service. I would assume
Yes.
the primary measure for of success was either number of closed deals or revenue generated. Which one was it?
So it was both initially, but later on it became just revenue generated, because initially, because they were not getting any new customers, so we first kept a target of getting some more new logos on the plate. But then we started saying we'll do the numbers as well. So we started picking up the numbers target and started working with them. And I think that's why, because the target was there, so we were able to double up the
Okay,
revenue as well for
perfect.
these guys.
Now you just mentioned the target, right? And I would imagine part of that strategy, right, that you mentioned at the beginning, where your buyer was very open to changes, listening to the recommendations. You made some adjustments to the strategy. What was the target audience for this service? Who were they selling to, right? So what industry, what geographies, what languages? Help me understand that, please.
Sure. So we started with selling first and foremost to the BFSI segment, banking, financial services, and insurance. We included manufacturing in that segment, their service offerings. We included that. Initially, we started with only India as a market, but later on expanded even to Europe and to US. And US, we found a lot of more critical success, which helped. So the India business and the US new business helped us do the doubling of the revenue for them.
Perfect. So double the revenue. They were stagnant. You were able to increase by 100% the revenue if it's a doubling. And
Yeah.
when it comes to these audiences that you mentioned, first in India, then Europe, then the US, that you were reaching out to in BFSI and manufacturing, was there a specific decision maker that you were trying to reach? Was it business owners, chiefs of operations? Who was the target decision maker for this campaign?
So the decision makers were, when you go to any company for software, they were largely the chief information officers, CIOs, and CTOs of those companies were largely the decision makers. But at the same time, there's the influencers, like CFO is an influencer, or sometimes a decision maker, because ultimately he's the person who's paying out,
Signs up.
taking care of cash. So those were largely the cases.
Okay. Okay, wonderful. Now, you did mention we were able to double the revenue of this stagnant company. How long did it take you to double the revenue? Was it a 6 month, 3 month? How long was the sales cycle as well?
So the normal sales cycle was roughly 3 months for every deal to happen, but doubling of the revenue happened practically 9 months. It took us 9 months, because first 3 months was still, understanding what kind of stuff do they do, what kind of a good stuff that they do, because we wanted to change the positioning and highlight that part out rather than all the things that they were able to do. So pick up one thing and beat completely on that one. And that is where we were able to create a good differentiator and do work with a lot of bigger names that way for them.
Okay, wonderful. So 9 months to double the revenue of the company, but the first 3 months you were iterating and trying to understand what was the right target, the right message to then put a little bit more, let's say, umph and steroids on bringing that out and really converting the right type of prospect. So I guess that takes me to my next question, which would be, what is the typical onboarding process for Jinactus Consulting when they do closed deals? How long does it take? What are the steps that you go through?
So usually we have a, some very common steps that we take. We go in, we understand what does this company do, what is their product or a service do, what kind of a customers do they want to go after,
Mhm.
and what kind of a revenue are they looking for, or how many deals are they looking at closing, right? So you start understanding what exactly is the ask for us to deliver, right? At the same time, you start looking at what are the different things that should be there to get those kind of results. So it is not just the sales part that needs to be there. A lot of times we have seen that customer would come back and say, hey, I want 20 deals to be done, and they do not have any marketing collateral to support, right? So the point is, whatever we want to do, we look at it as a strategy and then kind of devise. So we will get trained initially on the product or the service so that we can speak the language and then understand the benefits that it can draw, or we will create benefits along with those guys in case they have not even thought about those ones earlier. So create the benefit statements around, then start to say, how do we do this? Then we follow, because for every kind of a product or a service there could be a different um, RPC, the right party contact, the kind of designation that we have to go after. So we choose those ones, choose the verticals, choose even the segment. So for example, even if I say I'm good with manufacturing, this product, looking at their price point, I know only people who have more than $100 million as a revenue will suffice. So anybody lesser than them will not buy this software, right?
Mhm.
Or we start understanding that they should have SAP or a Oracle system within them, then only they'll buy. So you kind of pick up and create that niche and very focused segment with to whom you have to target your product or the service in that case. And so that's the usual preparation time. And I think you were asking for how do we go about preparing for ourselves, right?
Yeah, and how long it takes as well, that onboarding, that
So,
onboarding.
so usually this takes a week to 2 weeks time. Sometimes and the 2 weeks time is largely when the product or the service is a little bit more complex in nature, because you have to understand so that you can speak and present it rightly. Uh, in most of the very, very complex products, we do get help from our customer with respect to any kind of technical help that we might need for pre-sale activity or for demos and other things. So their teams participate along with us in the sales cycle as well.
Okay, perfect. So it sounds like the first 1 to 2 weeks of the onboarding process, you dig deeper into the product, but more than the product and its features is understanding who is this for, how do they use it, what problems does it alleviate, right? And then
Yeah,
you go ahead and continue crafting the messaging and further down the outreach, and also iterate, because you did mention 3 months. You just mentioned 2 weeks for the onboarding, but you mentioned in the success story that it took you 3 months to continue to iterate until you understood and found a niche that was working, that you blew it up in on the next 6 months, meaning 3 plus 6 equal 9 months, you double the revenue.
yeah,
Now, good. Now, I want to learn a little bit about, you mentioned for that specific success story, you were selling to manufacturing, banking, financial services, and insurance. That was the target audience. How do
yeah.
you create the lead list for a campaign like that? What sources do you use? How do you generate those leads? Make sure you have good phone numbers, good emails, and whatnot.
So we use a couple of tools, and I think a lot of people use those tools as well. So you have on one side Discover databases. You can take subscription of that to create a database. On one side, the second side is a LinkedIn, which also, if you take a sales navigator and all that, you can create a good list. And I think still, even if you get all these two lists, especially I'll talk from Discover or a Seamless or any other software that you might, platform that you might be using to get the data, you
Correct.
still need to verify the data, because the data can get stale because somebody might have resigned yesterday and it is not listed with them, right? So you got to be checking that out, testing it out to create the list. But before even getting that data, we are very clear on whom we are going to be targeting, who's my right party contact, which is the kind of profiles that I want to go after, which is the company profile I want to go after, what is the person profile that I want to go. So you create all these personas, and with the personas you go after and start creating a list, and then you can use these tools and to create a list, but also to, in some cases, to reach out. For example, if I'm using LinkedIn Sales Navigator, I can also reach out to those people through LinkedIn as well.
Okay, perfect. So that takes me to the next question. So you, just to recap before I ask it, you said look, identify the right personas first. With the right personas, job titles, industries, size of companies, etc. That's when you go to different databases. You may use discover.org, Sales Navigator, even enhance that data with tools like Seamless and others. But you said, hey, that also becomes stale quickly or outdated quickly. I have some extra processes maybe to clean those before you start the outbound. And you said LinkedIn. Help me understand when it comes to the sales sequences, what channels do you use? What goes first? What goes later? And more or less, how many touches would one prospect receive in a monthly basis?
Okay. Um, Again, before I answer that, just keep in mind that we only do B2B. So it's not a B2C. So obviously the touch points and everything else have to be numbered so that we don't get into a spam situation with them. So
Correct.
we keep that in mind. So our usual first outreach is obviously on LinkedIn to the person we want to get connected to him. We see all his profile later on, reach out to him, request him for a time slot and other things, and then try and arrange a call. The second touch point is usually we also create a email campaign list as well, so that we can reach out to people over email. So some people might respond back on LinkedIn, they may not respond back on LinkedIn, but then we send out an email also. Uh, we have restricted ourselves from phone calls, especially when you look at anything outside India. If you look at India, the phone calls still work quite well, but outside India, the cold calling is literally off right now from our perspective as of right now. So we focus on these two, and we are very comfortably able to generate uh, 10 plus leads per lead gen person per month. Again, it boils down to keeping in mind who's my target persona. What if it's a very very niche? Then obviously 10 will be a higher number. But otherwise, generally that's the norm that we have. The thumb rule that we have is that we should be able to generate that many leads from that, because lot out of 10, I'm sure 5 or 6 go as deferred or junk, and they would just like to know more about you rather than actually a good prospects. But so that means every month we are able to generate 4 to 6 prospects as well
Those
out
are
of
four
those
to
10.
six prospects that you have interacted with, correct?
Yes, we've interacted with 10, but 4 or 6 are some people who are going to go ahead and continue the discussion with us.
I want to clarify something for the audience because you mentioned leads, but you definitely work more than 10 leads. You work a larger number of leads. Those 10 are the ones that are able to connect with, right? Have a conversation. And out of those 10 that you connect with and speak, you said around 4, maybe 6 do take that next step, which would be probably a discovery meeting, a set appointment to
Yeah,
discuss with sales in more detail the solution that you're promoting. Perfect. And you
sure.
mentioned in the sequence, it's a careful number of touches. This is not spamming. This is not high volume. This is a careful approach where you use LinkedIn first, email
Email.
as well, and then phone, but not as a first touch, but maybe more like a follow up. In India, particularly, you said phone calls are still working fine, but in other regions, not so much. What other regions outside of India? You mentioned earlier you had target some places in Europe, some places in the US. Can you please confirm these services? What regions do you typically cover?
So we covered, like I said earlier, Australia, Asia Pacific, and US, all three
Perfect.
regions. And I just want to, Eddie, if you allow me, for me, a lead means person who's interested in talking to us. So that's why I said, 10 people were interested in talking or understanding more about the service is a lead. Anybody before that is still an MQL, right? It's a marketing qualified lead. The person may or may not take it forward. So that's our internal definition of lead. Sorry, I should have said that earlier as well to you.
It's okay. It's a great comment because there's a lot of companies and a lot of people that use these terms indefinitely or with different definitions. Chetan, everyone technically is a lead, but what is the level of qualification of the lead? And you just clarified something good. They've been exposed to the content of the company, marketing qualified lead, because they have not interacted with us yet, have not expressed an interested in speaking with sales. But as soon
Yeah,
as you outbound them, continue to push the content, and they said, I'm willing to take up a call, they're an sales qualified lead, SQL. You mentioned
yeah,
you speak with around 10 of those per month per rep. And out of those 10 that decide, yes, I want to talk to your sales team, about 4 to maybe 6 do take up a discovery meeting. They continue to be a sales qualified opportunity until they either close or get out of the pipeline, right?
absolutely. You
Okay,
got it.
wonderful.
Absolutely right.
So we've covered how you build the target lead list, how you execute the sequence. The last element that I have to ask you around your closing service would be what type of performance do you report? What type of dashboards or how do you report your performance? What are the KPIs and how do you do it?
So KPI is pretty simple. These many number of leads, there's many number of opportunities in the pipe, and this much in the revenue. So we look at all three because it is not just revenue, but health of the pipeline also is pretty important. So that there's a regular feature for you, right? We uh, do two kind of reporting. Sometimes we use our own CRM where we keep on putting the data, but most of the time if you're working with a bigger organization, they may already have a CRM, so we kind of use their CRM,
Mhm.
enter all the data there, we use that. So all the reports actually come out from them. And last but not the least, somebody does not want any kind of CRM, so Excel is a pretty good CRM that way, I must say.
Awesome.
Right.
So you can, and it's especially important because you're going to close the deal. So if they have a system, they typically are going to want you, your buyers are going to want you to work on their CRM. But as you
Yeah.
mentioned, depending on the stage of the company, not every company that you work with is a well mature company with a well established CRM and processes for their sales. That's when you can either create a separate instance you work from or even spreadsheets. Hey, good old reliable spreadsheets, well organized with the right status and fields, they still work fine for a lot of people, right? Um,
Yeah.
Wonderful. One last thing to give the audience some context around these opportunities. What was the average deal value and how long were the sales cycles?
Sure. And while I do that, there's one more point that I wanted to add to the earlier report part. So we usually have a weekly sales meeting with our customer so that he knows exactly what the team has done for the 1 week. And it's absolutely similar to if they would have their own sales team, they would have these weekly calls.
Mm.
And then obviously we interact on day-to-day basis on any kind of a live opportunity that we're working with, because that's something that's required. But then reporting is not just through the CRM or other places, but it's also through a call or a meeting in case they happen to be close by. Then we go and meet them on a weekly basis, because that's a great way of exchange and collaboration as well. Coming
Perfect.
to your current question, so usually, so as I said, we do B2B sales. So sales cycle does from 3 months to 6 months time frame is a sales cycle for right from the first connect to the actual close
Correct.
of the deal. And the um, the average deal size will change, right, based on the product to product. If I speak very specifically about the first example that I took earlier of the company where we doubled up their revenue,
Right.
their average deal size was something like $25,000, right? $25,000, and it could go on to a little more than 100K as well. So that
100K.
was a range in which they would play. So smallest deal will be 25, 100K. So somewhere close to 60 was the average deal size that we were working with.
Okay. This average deal size was for a year, an annual contract value.
Yes, yes,
Okay. Okay. That's great context. So we have 20 to 100K average deal values with a sales cycle between 3 and 6 months. You are able to double their revenue in 9 months. That's a very interesting outcome. With an onboarding that can be as short as 1 to 2 weeks, with a ramp up time definitely reaching around the 3 months. And of course, after that is just profiting as long as you continue to build that pipeline and convert. You take care of the conversion, so your customers can rest assured that things are being handled. And how can they control that? Well, there's reporting and there's a weekly meeting where you can have that feedback, show them how the pipeline's been progressing, any stock deals or any collaboration that needs to be worked on. I think that's pretty good context. So I'm gonna end this episode by asking you, what would be three tips, three advice, pieces of advice that you can share with the audience if they are considering to hire you and they want to increase the likelihood that they'll achieve their results faster? What would you tell them they need to prepare?
So I think three things. So first one I would say is that they need to be very clear on the objectives, what they want to give to us, the targets that they want to give to us. And they should start thinking that it is going to be one team that we are trying to create. It is not that I'm from a separate company and they're from a separate company. So some customers do come to us to say, hey, give me 20 enterprise level deals in a month is a
Right.
target. But we want to have one sales guy. Uh, and I would say, sorry, I was not able to hire the Superman. He joined somewhere else, right? So that's so. Let's be reasonable. We are also human. You are also human. And a lot of times you have a background that you tried to do sales yourself, and now you've not been able to achieve a number. So be reasonable with that number. Let it be achievable. It can be a little bit of stretch for us because we say that we are good sales experts ourselves. Yes, I can have a stretch, but I can't have 5 times the number that you were able to achieve over a period of time. So let's be reasonable when we do the target setting. That's one. The second one is, let's think it's a collaborative effort, and that's why we will keep on telling you what we are hearing from the market, because we need your help to beat the competition as well. So we keep on sharing that. You also need to keep on sharing whatever you've earlier heard or you are hearing right now. So let's be collaborative as we go into this, because it's a win-win for both of us. If we achieve the target, it is not just me who's going to get benefited by having a good customer. You will also get benefited of getting the target that you wanted to achieve.
Right.
So those are the two big, I think, things that we want to look at. And third is the level of preparedness that they should come up with, which helps all of us to achieve the right kind of numbers for them.
Okay, there are a few ideas there. I captured some that were, first of all, have a clear target audience. Sometimes they may not know exactly who they're aiming for. That's
Yeah.
something from what I've heard at the beginning. You can help with that. You can adjust that target, but the better prepared the buyer comes, the easier or the faster you guys can hit the ground running at Jinactus Consulting. Number two, treat us as part of their team, as if we were internal. And that's
Yeah.
something that I've seen when it comes to outsourcing sales. Many buyers just throw bodies at an issue and hope that it gets fixed automatically. But in reality, you need to continue to work in conjunction. Third, I would say realistic expectations. If you've never done it before, yes, we are the sales experts. We can probably get better numbers, but not unrealistic numbers. We're not the supermans of sales. We are the best real humans at sales, I would say, right? So realistic expectations, the grow together goes hand in hand with the, hey, treat us as if we are internal. Let's be aligned. Let's be one team. Let's grow together. Me as an agency, but you as a company. If I help you grow, you're going to help me grow. So it's a win-win for everybody. And that also ties into back to the first one. Clear target is almost like the level of preparation from the buyer. The better prepared they are, the better things they have tried, then the easier it's going to be for you to take those lessons and continue to amplify the message, build more pipeline, close more revenue. All
Yeah.
right, wonderful. I like that, Chetan. Is there anything else you want to share with the audience before we end up this episode?
Nothing in particular, but sales outsourcing is a great way in case of achieving your numbers, in case you're not able to hire your own team, or also if you're looking for some expertise specifically for some time. So you look at us. And that expertise could come right from addressing a specific market segment, and that could be a specific geo. You might have a sales team in US, but now you want to expand your sales and test waters, for example, in Asia Pac or India. I think we are great guys for that as well. So it is not that, again, it is creating some more channels for your own product sales or your services sales, and that's it. But nothing apart from that, I think.
Wonderful, Chetan. I think that's a pretty good advice. If you're considering to grow, get some expertise, you can definitely find Jinactus Consulting in the CloudTask marketplace. Do not hesitate. Get some consultation. Get at least an interview. Thank you so much for your time, Chetan. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We'll see you guys on the next one.
Thank you so much, Adi. Pleasure was all mine of being with you. Thank you. Thanks.
Awesome, my
Cheers.
friend.
Bye.